So in the last session, what we did is, in the yesterday session, we loaded data from MERA table into BW. Okay, and what did we do? So we used a view to restrict the total number of fields. Okay, and then we have loaded data to an attribute table. Okay, so we created this info object, and when we create that info object, the table is created, attribute table, and we loaded data into the attribute table. So let's go to BW. Go to the T code RSA1. Now double click on this info object to see, to go to master data or text. So here we have the attribute table. So double click and we should be able to see the data here. So go to contents, number of entries, 16,534 records are updated in this table. Right? So now in ECC there is one more table. So if I go to the T code S11.
If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Go to a table, MEKT. Okay. So MEKT is what? Material descriptions. Now let's see what is the difference between these two tables and what information we have in MERA and what information we have in MEKT. Okay. Now if I go to MERA table, now so you can see here we have material number, okay, and then the other information. Now this is like a employee ID, right? A unique ID for every employee. Then the material descriptions. See, we can't remember everyone with just an ID, right? So we should have an associated name. So this is an ID, and the description for that material number is there in another table called MEKT, material descriptions. So here you can see we have material number and language and the material description. Click on contents. Now you can see I'll see some sample 20 records. I have to see the descriptions in English. I'll apply a filter English. Okay. So this is the material and this is the description. Okay. So for example, this material number 288 refers to protection shield. Okay. Likewise. So this was then material number 98 refers to PCB subassembly. There is a description of this. Now in this table we are storing the data in multiple languages. So here material number and language is the key. Now if you want to store this data in BW, okay, we will not create info objects for this again. Okay, so material number and material text both refers to one, right? One is the key and one is text. So what you do is descriptions you never store it separately. Okay, so I'll go to the info object which we created yesterday. Okay, so in the master data or text tab, go to change mode of the info object. In the master data or text tab, we say with text. Text is nothing but description. Okay, what kind of text you want? So see the description of this info object. I mean, this is char 40. Okay. So char 40 meaning medium text. If it is 20 characters, short text. 40 characters, 60 characters, long text. Okay. And the texts are language dependent, meaning in this table we have descriptions in multiple languages. Every material has a description in its own language. So if you enable this option, texts are language dependent. So based on the logon language, the description would be shown for the user. Okay. So when you activate this info object, when you select this and activate the info object, another table will be created. That is the text table. So see the text table. This is the info object name. The table, text table which is automatically created will have a technical name /BIC/T and your info object name. In this table, material and language is the primary key, and you have the description. Okay, so for descriptions, remember we will never create a separate info object. You should associate the description with the key. Okay, the employee ID and employee name will be one info object. Country code and country description will be one info object. So you will be loading the country description as a text. So now we have one more table, that is the text table. Now we'll repeat this process, loading process. So in this now I have MEKT as the table source table. Now in the last session we created a view just to ensure that we restrict the total number of fields. Let's see the total number of fields in MEKT. MEKT is having just 5 fields, so I don't need to go for a view. Okay, I'll directly create a data source on top of this table. Okay, then now which one? So it's a text table you are loading. So /BIC/T. Okay, so rest all would be same. So let's quickly do that. What is the first step we did? So we created a database view, but in this case a database view is not required because I will extract all fields of this table. Only 5 fields are there. So I'll go to decode RSO2 and create a data source. So go to the decode RSO2/O RSO2. Now this is a master data text data source. Okay, so I give the data source technical name. Okay, from data source technical name, click on create. Give a folder where you would like to save this data source. I'll give the description as material text. Here, instead of the database view, I'll directly give the table now, MEKT. Save your data source. Okay. So now, when you create the data source, it will ask you for the package. Click on local object, save. So I will select material number for filtering the data. Save your data source. So now the data source is created successfully in ECC. Okay. So make sure you create the data source in ECC. Then you can test it here itself. So you can go to the decode slash O RSA3 to validate whether your data source is working fine or not. So I can see some sample 1000 records. Click on extraction. Okay. So you can see you have descriptions in multiple languages, like this is in Japanese, so this is in English, this is in German, likewise. Okay. So you will show descriptions in multiple languages. Now, based on the logon language of the user, uh, respective description will be shown in the report. Meaning, if a German user runs a report, so this description would be shown in the report. A user who logs in English will see this description. Okay. So now data source is working fine in ECC. What is the next step we need to do? We need to replicate the data source. Replicate and activate. It will create its own PSA table. Every data source will have its own PSA table. So go to BW. Go to the transaction code RSDS/N RSDS. Give the data source name. In which source system you created this data source? Select the source system. Go to the menu data source and say replicate data source. Create it in the latest version. Replicate it successfully. Now activate the data source. /N RSA1. Go to the menu data sources. So ensure that you are seeing the data sources for the right source system. Otherwise, change the source system. Search for your data source. Here it is. Okay. Material text. It is in the inactive state. Go to change mode. See if the PSA table is created. It's empty because we didn't activate the data source. Now, once the data source is activated, for the same info object, you will do the transformation, but in the info object, you will select the subtype as text. Okay, earlier we loaded attributes, now we are loading text. And then once we create the transformation, what is the next thing we need to do? We need to create info package and DTP. So info package will bring data till PSA, and from PSA to the target table, data would be loaded using DTP. In the DTP, enable the error DTP. Okay. So in case of any error, you fix the error in the error DTP and repost them. So now you can see the data source is created successfully, active and executable. Now we should be able to see the PSA table. Refresh. So now we have this data source material text. Create transformation. So I'll open a new session. /O RSA1. Go to info provider. What is the info object? Material number. Okay. So select the info object material number. Select your data source. Right click and say create transformation. The target of the transformation is info object, subtype is text, and give the info object technical name. Here now currently there is no data flow below the text. Now we are creating a transformation. So I'll map material number to material number, language, okay, and description. Activate the transformation. So transformation is activated successfully. Now if we go back, so we should be able to see a data flow below text, right? So loading process say create info package and DTP. Select your data source, right click and say create info package. So give some description for your info package. Save. Okay. Go back. Now create a DTP. Double click on the DTP folder. Activate the DTP. So before we go to the activation, go to the update tab. So I'll say. So yesterday we saw that there are already error records in the material. So here also we'll see. So I'll change the error handling. Valid records update. Make the request green. Handle duplicate record keys. Okay. Activate. Create an error DTP. So refresh. We'll see now two DTPs here. One is regular DTP and the next one is error DTP. Let's load the data. So loading data is two-step process. First bring the data to PSA. So that would be through info package. Double click on the info package. Go to schedule. Start. Data was requested. Now you can go to MEKG table and see the number of entries. So there are total 168K. Click on monitor to see the status of the info package. Now currently the load is running. You can see that's why it is yellow. Now can I run the DTP now immediately? Tell me yes or no. What happens if I run the DTP now? So when you run the DTP before the info package is successfully completed, it will bring zero records. It will not bring partial records. Okay, it will bring zero. So the info package step has to be successfully completed. Only then you should run the DTP. Now which table will be updated? The table will be updated which is text table. Now if I use the info object in the reporting, I'll get material key and material text from the info object. Okay. So looks like that request is completed by now. So request is completed. So it brought 168K records, 168,846. Now go to DTP. So basically the load is running. The request is green. The rest of the records went to error stack. So I have set that option. Just ignore the error records. So we know how to correct the error records. So that part we should take care. Okay, so now we loaded material attributes and material description text. If you access the data through the info object, so if you use this info object in the reporting, it will give you both key and text. Now let's create a very sample report and see if we are able to see the material key and descriptions in the report. So any questions so far? How to load master data attributes, master data text? Just give me a minute. Okay. So now for this info object, how many tables we have? We have two tables, right? One is an attribute table and one is a text table. What is the link between those two tables? So let's see that.
Hi Ganesh, Aditi here.
Yeah, Aditi.
In the yesterday session, you gave us an assignment to load the data for K and event table. So I had some issues with the data loading in that for that table. So like when do we see that at the end of the session?
Yeah. So let's see that at the end of the session. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
The link between the master data attributes table and the text table is the key. Okay. So let me log in. Go to the T code RSK1. Okay. So let's do one thing now. So let's load customer master data, which I have given as an assignment. Okay. So we'll see this using graphical modeling. Okay. So we'll see a concept called graphical data flow. Okay. Um, yeah. Did I answer your question, Sai?
Ganesh,
Yeah.
when you create a text, how it understands the field of a description without creating a description field in the info object, like the field without, like, can you just go back and, how the text being created? Like, see, I mean, the table, the field, right? The description is in another table,
Right.
material description, and then you are trying to create on the same attribute table, which was there, and then without having a field called description, which is, and how it understood, like the link between.
Okay. See here,
Yeah.
material number. Okay. So when it's actually a different table. So if I go to attributes and text, so there is one table which has the attributes. Okay.
Okay. You have a attribute. Yeah. Okay.
There
What
is
is on?
Yeah, this is an
What's on
attribute
top?
table.
So data view. Oh no, no. Okay, that's good. That's one which is attribute table, and on top
Yeah.
of that, there's a what is a MZ, max?
Let's come to that part
That's a
later.
master. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we have this attribute table, P table, and then based on the selection here, based on this checkbox, a text table is created. Okay. Now when I activate this info object, so what did I do? So I selected medium text. So with the same info object properties, which is char 18, and then we set it as language dependent and medium text. A text table is created, material number, language, and description. So we are bringing the MERKT data into this table, MERE data into attribute table. The link between those two tables is material number. Yeah. Now, can you please repeat your question? Are you clear, or you still have some?
No, no, no. Okay, I understand. I mean, still like not clear here. Like a T. Okay, you created a text. That's good, but where is the description coming to picture? Like this is how it understands. You're bringing the description from the source to the target site. Can you go back to the fields or like attributes? Okay, language. How it got here? Like text, MD.
So you can see this is char 40, right?
Yeah.
So this column is coming from medium text. If I select short text, one more column would be created with char 20. So this checkbox will add a new column in the table.
Oh, this is about just a description. Huh?
Yeah, char 20. Now, if I enable this checkbox, long text, and activate the info object, one more column will be added, char 60.
Oh, okay. So it means like whenever you're creating a text table, and then always a description come into picture, which will link with a key, right?
Right.
That's the primary key.
Exactly.
Okay. And then how do you link the description at the source to in the target? Like that is through your data source.
Yes.
No, okay, that's fine, but from the data source, right?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the data source? I just want to, I mean, to understand the these things, how you're mapping.
So now, if you create a transformation for attributes, the P table would be updated. Now, if I create a transformation for text, the text table would be updated. Material number to material number, language, and the description.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So they are created under single attribute, but they act as two independent tables, basically.
Right.
As well.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
So material number is one info object which will create two tables. One is an attribute table and one is a text table. Okay. So if you say with master data, it will create an attribute table. If you say with text, it will create a text table. Now, from the reporting standpoint, both would be like one info object only. If I create a report on top of this info object, I'll see both key and text. Okay. So let's quickly verify that if we are able to see both the key and text using this info object. Remember, we don't deal with these tables. We always deal with the info objects. So if I want to create a query, go to the transaction code /o rrmx. I want to create a BEX query on top of this info object. BEX stands for Business Explorer. The C code is rrmx. So when you go to this C code rrmx, Microsoft Excel will open because the BEX query designer and analyzer is a Excel plugin. Go to add-ins or tools, create new query, log into the BW system. Now we have data in two tables. The join between those two tables will happen based on the key material number. Okay. So in attribute table we have material number as the primary key. In the text table we have material number as the key. The join will happen between those two tables and then it will bring the descriptions accordingly. So now this is the BW BEX query designer. Create a new query. Now on which you would like to create on an info object. This is the material info object. So go to find, give the info object name, search in technical name. What I'm doing, I'm searching for the object on which I would like to create the query. Open. Now I'll include material number. Okay. Then attributes, like for example material group, material status. Okay. Then on the material number, I'll go to display. I'll select what do you want to show, both key and text or only key or only text. I'll select key and text, medium text. What is key and what is text? Material number is going to be key and the description of that is going to be text. So when you select key and text, key would be coming from MERA table, the attribute table, P table, and the description would be coming from the other table. So give some save. When you save the BEX query, it will ask you for a technical name and a description. So I'll follow some naming convention, Z underscore your info object name underscore Q001. I'll say BW BEX query. Okay. Now I'll apply some filter. I don't want to run the report for entire data. So I just want to run the report for a particular material group. Right click and restrict. So let's see what is the status of the data in this table. Attribute table, double click. So let the query run. So now here we have a P table, attribute table. Then you have a text table. in both of these tables, material number is available. So when I create a BEX query on the info object, so it will go ahead and bring the data, the join, the output of this query would be the join between these two tables. So that's how I'll get in attribute, material number, material attributes, and material description in the query. So see here, material number, material description, and I'm seeing only in English because I have logged in into the BEX query in English. So here material number, material status, material type are coming from P table and the description is coming from text table. So from BW standpoint, we would always refer to the info object, but data would be stored in the underlying database in their its own, their own tables. So material number and material description. Now if I go to this MAKT table and give this pass material number, I should see this description. Go to MAKT. SC16 or SC11 MAKT. In which language? In English language we are seeing the data. Assembly. Okay. Now if I go to MAKT table, I should be able to see the maintenance status or material type, etc. What is this? Material status to KDGB /O SE16 MERA, pass the material number. So now we can see here maintenance status is KDGBEV. So it is material status, which is material status. Go to settings, user parameters. Okay, let's see the length of this. KDGB. So it is EV. This is the material status. So looks like it's getting truncated. Okay. So let's see the length of this info object. Go to BW. Material status is created as cat4. Whereas here it is cat15. So the data was truncated. Okay. So you can see the transformation. Yeah.
Ganesh?
Yeah.
That's not material status. That is maintenance status. See, you
It
can
just depends on the mapping. Okay, 1 minute. I understand what you're saying. So see here, there is an info object created. What is this maintenance status is mapped? PSCAT is mapped with this info object. Okay. So this is the source is cat15, the target is cat4. Okay. This info object is using a description material status, but what is mapped in the transformation? PSCAT, which is cat15. So the data got truncated. Okay. Is it fine? So basically now it looks like the wrong info object is used. Now create one more info object, add it to the attributes, reload the data. Now map this PSCAT to the new info object and load the data. Yeah.
Ganesh, like, I mean, basically here is the length of, just it's a 15 is the source and target is a 4. You can change it to the 15 and then, activate and then redo that, right?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Once we load the data, let's see if that allows us to do the change without deleting it.
It's going to load. See, you're reloading. When you reload the data, it is going to append or it is going to delete the original one and then do how the at the target side.
It will overwrite based on the primary key of the table. Okay, so now I'm changing this to cat15. So it says that this table already has some data.
So it's not a delta, it's a full load.
Yeah. Okay. So basically it has some data already loaded to this table. So first delete the data in those tables and then change the length. So now let's do one more example on the master data load. Now we'll make use of a feature called graphical data flow. Okay. So we loaded so far material attribute data. Now we load customer information, customer master data. So customer master data is coming from a table KMU1. Okay. Log into ECC. Okay, so go to the T code S11. The customer master data is coming from the table KNU1. Okay, so which I have given this as an assignment. So you can just see it one more time to see where you are going wrong. So here I have customer number. Okay, customer name we have. Okay, now you will not create this customer name as a separate info object. Remember, the key and text would be associated with the same info object. Technically, they are storing it as two separate, but it is actually one object. Employee ID and employee name, customer ID and customer name. Then here we have country key. So I want to create this info object and load the data. So city, region, postal code. So what is the step one? Step one is to create info objects in BW. Okay. So now load the data, but when we are loading the data, we'll make use of this feature called graphical data flow. Okay. Then we'll understand how the graphical data flow makes our job easy without navigating so many screens. Okay. So you also, when you're practicing, first practice without graphical data flow. Ensure that you are able to understand the mapping. Then come to the graphical data flow option. Then you'll understand the importance of both of them. Okay. So we'll do this after a break. Okay. So I'll take 15 minutes break and then we'll connect and then we'll complete the uh, master data loading for customers using graphical data flow. So now what we'll do is we'll create the same thing we'll do like the creation of info objects and loading the master data from KNA1 table. Okay. First step would be to create the info objects. Okay. So now I have this info objects already created. We know how to create the info objects. Okay. Now if I go to customer ID, I have added the attributes. Fine. Now let's load the data for this info object, which is customer ID. So we know how to create info objects, right? Characteristics and key figures. So that part is safe. Take the technical name of the info object, customer ID. So customer ID is the key info object. So which will have the attribute table created. Okay. So in this attribute table we have address, city, country, house number, region, annual sales, and currency. Go to info provider. Okay. So go to info provider, select your info area, right click and say insert characteristic as info provider. Add your info object here. So it has two parts, attributes and text. Okay. Now let's repeat the process. So first step is to create a data source in ECC. Before we create a data source, what do we need to do? Now I'll create a view, database view. Why do I need a view here, and why did we do it for MAKT? Because KNA1 is having a lot of fields. Okay, so I don't want all those fields to be transferred to BW. So for that, I'll create a database view. What is the transaction code to create a database view? Can anyone quickly tell me in the chat room? Take me in the chat room. Okay. The database view will be created in the transaction code SE11, not RSO2. Yeah. Okay. So SE11. Now, in which system you have to do it? That the database view should be created in the ECC system, ERP. Go to log into ECC. So KNA1. So I'll go to a transaction code /O S11. Choose the radio button. View. Give a view name. I'll say ZV underscore. Okay. For example. Okay, so this is the view name. Click on create database view. Now give the field. Give the table name KNA1. Go to view fields. So give the list of the fields which you want to extract to BW. So use Control Y to select multiple fields. Okay, so I want all these fields. Control C to copy and paste. Control V. From which table are we getting this data? So KNA1. Okay. Then I want one more field, annual sales. In the currency. Make sure you have the MENDT column in the customer number. Activate the database view. So I'll create it as a local object. So warnings occur during activation. That's fine. So the view is active now. So on top of this database view, I'm going to create a data source. The transaction code is RSO2 /O RSO2. Now this is again master data attributes. As says that BWT underscore customer ATTR CATTR, create a new data source. So choose some folder for the data source, application component. SAP R3, customer service, customer master data. So give some description for your data source. Now I can directly give the table here, but if you give the table unnecessarily, you will be extracting a lot of data. So I'll just give the view name. Control C and Control V. Save your data source. Okay. Now, what fields you want to enable it for selection? Country and customer. Save it. The data source is created in BW. Okay. Sorry, in ECC. Now go to BW and replicate this data source and activate it. So go to the transaction code /O RSDS. Give the data source name. This is the data source name. Okay, in which source system? In the ECC. So if you see here, so ECW 800. So this is the RFC connection. Go to the menu data source and say replicate data source. So create new data source. Data source is replicated successfully. Now activate the data source /n RSA1. Go to data sources. You are seeing the data sources for a flat file. Now you need to change that. So see, go to data sources for ECC. Search for your data source. So currently it is in the inactive mode. Go to change and activate the data source. So far it is same what we did till now. Okay. Now we'll see how to create a graphical data flow.
Hey, Dinesh,
Yes.
is graphical data source nothing but process change?
No, it's not. So
Okay.
it is graphical data flow. Basically, it's not about loading, but how do you connect the data source with the transformation, etc. So here in okay, so if you are in 7.4 version, basically BW on HANA is 7.3 or 7.4. So you will find this option data flows. Okay, this is a new feature coming in BW 7.3. Okay, so now I'll go to the info area, right click and say create a data flow. Okay, so let's see what is the advantage of this data flow. First of all, this is your data source, right? Then which is our info object. Customer ID is the info object. Go to data flow. Right click on create data flow. Your data flow name. See, we connected data source with the transformation manually. Here we can just do it graphically. So Z data flow underscore customer data flow per customer attributes. Okay. Now you see kind of a tools graphical window canvas here. So what is the target of our transformation info object? Just do a drag and drop. It has attribute, text, and hierarchy. So which info object? Right click and say, click on this button, use existing info object. Now search for this info object, which is our info object, customer ID. It has attributes and text. Now how we are loading the data? Using a data source. So drag and drop data source. Which data source? Right click and say use existing object. Now search for your data source. This is the data source. Fine. So the data source is coming from this source system. Now how to create transformation? Just draw a line. Okay, then double click. The transformations will be created. Now do the mapping. So customer ID, then address, city of the customer, then country, house number and street, then region, annual sales. Okay. Activate the transformation. The same thing we did. What is different in the graphical data flow is you can do it in one screen. You don't need to switch here and there. Okay. So I want to create an info package. Right click on create info package. Your description. Save the info package. Go back. Info package is created. Now you want to create a DTP. Right click on create DTP. So enable the error handling. The DTP is created. Now if you see the data source, if the data source is bringing the customer name, okay, I can use the same data source to load the text as well. I'll create one more transformation from the same data source to text. Create transformation. So here we have text, medium description. Now all the descriptions are coming in English, so I'll keep a language column as a constant. Right click, go to rule details. I'll keep a constant value EN English. Activate the transformation. Go back. So like you can see, all these things we did it graphically. The same thing what we did for material. Okay, the only change is a graphical screen here. Activate the data flow. Now loading is same, so it's just simply double click, schedule, start the load. So I schedule the info package, so data would be there now in PSA. So let's wait for this load to be completed. Only once the info package load is completed, then you need to trigger the DTP. So the load to the info package is successful, PSA is successful, 8,508 records are extracted. We can go to the source table and find out the number of records. Here you can see the same number of records, 8,508. Go back, now execute the DTP. Right click and set click on execute. So we can see here the load got failed. Let's see the reason for this error. Okay, it says too many error records, update terminated. See the reason for the error. So here there is a error button. So it says so for this house number, okay, so this value is not valid. Likewise for city, it says the value is not valid. Okay, so like you can see, you have all the records saying as in not valid, because the info object by default it accepts uppercase. Okay, so when you have this kind of descriptive data, like for example, if you see here, we are getting the house number and the city name in lowercase. So this kind of data, what we need to do is, I will enable one checkbox in the info object. So where is the info object we have? Which all info objects? First city and house number. So if I go to change mode, I'll enable this option lowercase letters. Okay, activate. So from the source, if you are getting this kind of data descriptions, so I'll enable this column, enable this option lowercase letters. Now let me reload the data. I'll go to info provider. I'll rerun the DTP. So it says the last request is in red. I mean it failed. What do you want to do? So I'll just say delete and reload. Now let's see the status of this request. Now the load is successfully completed. So tell me which table will this will be updated? Attribute table or text table? Okay. No, it's not updated to both the tables. Why? Because we executed one DTP. We executed DTP to the attribute. We didn't execute the DTP to the text. Okay, so let's do that. Now let's load the text data for this customer. As we are using the same data source, info package will be same. Okay, now if I go to the graphical data flow, you can see the same data source is loading to both the attributes and text. So info package is same. So data is already there in the PSA. I don't need to execute info package one more time. I'll just create a DTP. Okay. And now if I execute the DTP, data would be loaded to the text table. Fine. So this data is there in the text table. So if you want to see the data, so select the info object, click on contents. Okay. So you can see the customer ID, basically the customer master data. So let's go to the respective table. So go to the attribute table and the text table of the info object. So tell me, what is the advantage of graphical data flow? Is graphical data flow mandatory? So text table is the number of records, 8508. So graphical data flow is only optional. Okay, it just helps us design the data flow in one screen without navigating between different screens. So if you are able to create without data flow, that's also fine. So this is the text table /BIC/T and your info object name, customer ID in language English and the description of that customer. Now the attribute table will have customer ID and the customer attributes. So this table also has 8509. There is one empty record. Okay. So rest of the records you can see here. Customer ID, address, city, country, region, house number, etc. Now if you observe the country, what do you see here? These are country codes, not the country description. So now what I want to do is, I want to bring the country description to BW. Okay. So customer is having country as an attribute. So we are storing in the attribute table, we are only storing the country key. But in the report, the requirement would is like this. I want to see customer ID, customer name, and the country description. I don't want to just see the country code. Okay. Then you might ask, why don't we store the country description directly here? Why do we need separately? See, filtering the data is always faster based on these codes rather than doing it on the description. So now I'll create one more data flow and I will load the description per country. Okay. So likewise, the region is also having keys. Okay. So now I'll load the description per region and country. Okay. So Aditi, was your issue the same?
Yes, I mean, I had the same errors when during the data loading, but I have to uncheck the option and check. I mean, I'm not sure if that would work for me. I can try and let you know.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So quickly, let me check this.
Yeah, you can maybe go through my. It is under customer master info area.
Okay. So, like I said, customer name should not be a separate info object. Okay. So it should be customer number and customer name will be one info object. So this has to be the text of it.
Okay.
What do you do is go to info provider tab, add this info object as an info provider. Then we will be able to see the data flows. Okay, so basically the flow is created properly. Now if I go to the manage tab, can I see a failed request? See the display. So it says internal error terminated. So let's see what is that. So you can go to job overview, job is cancelled, job log. So it doesn't say anything, just it is asking us to go to the T code ST22. ST22 is the short dump analysis. If this kind of errors, you can go to this T code ST22. So under your user ID.
No, it's under today. Today's ID, date.
This one is your user ID.
Yes.
Okay, so now if you go to ST22, we can say go to information where it is terminated. So looks like nothing wrong with the data flow. Maybe just activating and re-executing will fix this issue. So let's try that. So go to
Under
DTP.
error handling, it also gives me the invalid records.
Yeah. So now I'll change this error handling to request green and write data to our error stack. Update valid records. So click on execute. The last request is in failed status. So delete that and recreate. Start the load again. So now still we can see the error. Okay. Now we see a different error. Too many error records. Now the issue is lowercase. Okay. Now just enable these two info objects as lowercase city and
Name.
I mean this is one is city and I think the other one is customer name, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why you should not use customer name as a separate info object. Okay, it should be part of the description. So that should fix the issue. Okay, you can take care of this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So any questions on the graphical data flow, or everyone? I mean, the advantage of graphical data flow is nothing but it simplifies our task. You can see all of this in one screen. Now, in this customer master data, okay, what do we have? We have country, right? If I go to the table, attribute table, we are getting the country key. So US is United States, D is Germany, C is China, MX is Mexico, likewise. So I don't want to see these codes in the report. Okay. So I want to see the description, country name. So country names are coming from a table in ECC, in a table T005T. T005T. Country names. So here you have country key and language, in which language you are storing, and the country name. So let's see, for example, US, or let's say CN, which country this refers to in English language, English. The description is land China, right? So this descriptions I want to load it to BW. Now tell me which would be my target info object. In BW, which would be the target info object I need to load the data? Anyone? Oh, Srini? Yeah. Thanks, Abraham. So country. Okay, country is the info object to which we need to load the text. Right? It's country key and country text, right? So we need to use country as the info object now as the target of this data flow. So first step, what you need to do is take the country info object, Control C, go to info provider. Okay, select your info area, right click and say insert characteristic as info provider. Then you will be able to see this object. So it has text, country text. Now create a data flow, create a data source. The loading process is same what we did, the data source, then replicate, then create data flow, etc. So let's do it quickly. Okay, so like we saw the same data flows we did almost like 3 times by now. So if you do it a couple of times, we'll get used to this terminology, right? So don't worry on that part if you don't remember these steps. So just practice a couple of times. It would be easy. Okay. So now in ECC we have this table T005T. Now tell me, do I need to go for a view or not? Please respond to me quickly. Do I require to create a view or not on top of this table? Okay, not required. Okay, thanks everyone, because you just have 9 fields. Okay, out of these 9 fields you require this almost like these three fields. So I'll directly create a data source. Now right click, go to the T code RSO2 in ECC. Where before you go to the T code, make sure you check the system ID. Okay, go to the T code RSO2. Now this is a text data source. Now I need to choose this radio button text. Text is nothing but description. Country text. So I'll say country underscore txt. Start. Make sure that the object will start with the technical name Z. Some name create. So in which application component. So give some description. Country text. So what is the table? T005T. Okay. Save your data source. What is the transaction code to verify this data source, whether it is working fine or not? Tell me. Which data source? Sorry, which transaction code? Anyone? Yeah. So RSA3. Now I'll go to BW. Go to the T code RSDS. What is the other way to create the data source? Replicate to BW. So go to data sources. Make sure you see the data sources for ECC. Data sources for ECC. Now search for your data source. Sorry, you need to replicate. So go to this info area for application component. So there is another way to replicate the data source. Okay, see here, our data source is not available for now in this info area. right click and say replicate metadata. So by this also you can create the data source, replicate the data source. Either you go to RSDST code or you select the application component. Application component is nothing but the folder. What is the folder we have given? 0cs-io. Okay. So what happens when you do this? You can see when you select the okay. So when you select the application component and say replicate, it will replicate all the data sources in that particular area. So now I don't want the rest of them. I just want to create only this one data source. So I'll uncheck them and click on continue. Otherwise, use the T code RSDS. Anything is fine. Okay. So country text, now our data source is created. ZCT_txt. Is the PSA table created now? Tell me, yes or no? Quickly. Okay. Question is the PSA table created? Yes, everyone? Okay. So the PSA table will be created when we activate the data source. Currently, the data source is not activated. So if you go to technical settings, technical attributes, you can see there is no PSA table. When we activate the data source, a PSA table will be created. Okay. Can we do reporting on PSA? Yes or no? Okay. So that's right. The PSA table is not for reporting. PSA will just ensure that data gets loaded faster to BW. Any data validation will happen before you update data to PSA? Tell me. No. Okay. So no data validation will happen while you update the data to PSA. So that's the reason data gets updated faster in PSA. When you move the data from PSA to the target, any logic you apply in the transformation will be applied, and then the data quality will be checked. For example, we saw that if the city is in lowercase, the load fails, right? So if the key values are having some any special characters, the load got failed. So the data validations happen while you update the actual object. So that's the reason we have a two level data flow, one to PSA and from PSA to the target table. So now the data source is created. Okay. So if you go to technical attributes, now we'll see the PSA table created. Now I'll create a graphical data flow. Just keep this object in the notepad. This is our data source. What is our info object? Go to info provider. So country is the info object now because we are loading the descriptions to country. Okay. Go to graphical data flow. I'll create a new data flow now. Right click on create data flow. I'll say that country text data flow for country descriptions. Okay. Drag and drop the info object. Now drag and drop data source. Okay. Which info object? Right click and say use existing object. Now search for the info object country. Use the search button. So it has attributes and text. Now we just want only text. Data source, right click and say use existing object. So do a transformation, draw a line. double click that transformation. The target of the transformation is info object, subtype is text. Click on continue. So language column is mapped. So map country to country. Okay. Then country name Landex. Name of the country to short description. So this is the 15 characters. So country short description is enough, which is cat 20. Activate the transformation. Now go to data flow, change. Now create info package and DTP. So select your data source, right click, say create info package. Can I start the data node now? Yes, we can start. You don't need to wait for DTP to be created. So data is requested. Go back, create a DTP. Select your target object, right click and say create DTP. You are loading text, subtype is text. Activate. Before you execute the DTP, this is very important. Okay. Before you execute the DTP, make sure the info package load is completed. Okay. So you can go to data source, right click and say manage. Here you see the status green. Okay, it's completed successfully. So now I'll trigger the DTP. Load is successfully completed. Okay. So likewise, take this as an assignment. Bring the description for region. Okay. So region data would be coming from T005U. Okay. So your next assignment would be load region description, region text from table T005U to region info object. Fine. And you can make use of the graphical data flow. Use graphical data flow and load for example, load vendor master data, okay, which is LSA1, okay, and very important, see here, info objects has to be reusable. Meaning, if I go to LSA1 table, when you are loading the vendor master data, LSA1, so you have vendor account number, nothing but vendor ID, then you have country, then you have city, then you have region, right? You should not create separate info objects, okay? Meaning, when you create the customer master data, you would have created an info object for country, likewise for city and region. Reuse the same info object when you create the vendor master data. Otherwise, you will end up storing the country descriptions in another table and region descriptions in another table. Okay, so use the same info objects, then load vendor attributes. Now when you create a report on top of this vendor master data, you should be able to see the country key and the country description, because we loaded the custom when we are loading the customer country. Okay, so we loaded the country descriptions. We loaded for all the countries, not only the countries of customer. Okay, so info objects will make the master data reusable. So now just see here, the customer info object has one table, customer attributes, then another table, customer text. Okay, so in the customer attribute there is a country key, so that will be joined with country text, and if you load the region text, when I build a report on top of this info object customer, I will be able to get the data from all these tables. Okay, so let's verify that if in the report on customer info object, will I be able to see country description and customer description? So what is our, so before we go ahead and create a max query, did you understand on the reuse of info objects? If you
Ganesh, Aditi here.
Yes, Aditi.
So you mean to say whatever info object we previously created for the country, we have to reuse the same whenever we have a country, we can use the same info object, and we do not create another info object.
Right. See,
So
not only in vendor master data, within BW, anywhere you have the requirement to store the country, you will reuse the same info object. Okay, country code. Now, so that would be your next assignment. Create a BEX query on vendor and make sure the country names are shown in the report. You will not load the country descriptions once again. You already loaded the country description while we are loading the customer master data. Okay, so using the same table, because as we are using the same info object, the same table would be accessed. The key thing we need to remember is, when you create the info objects for vendor, we should reuse the country info object, city info object, region info object. So now let me verify how to get the country descriptions while I create an info object query on customer. Go to BW. What is the info object for? I'll not create a query now on country. I'll create an info object on customer. Okay. So activate the data flow, which is our info object, customer ID. The another way to open the query designer is go to Start, All Programs, Business Explorer. What is one way? One way is to go through the RRMXT code. The other way is go to Start All Programs, Business Explorer, click on Query Designer. Okay, select your BW on HANA system. So log into the system. the RRMS T code is not working on the remote server. So you can use this navigation, start all programs, Business Explorer and Query Designer. Okay, in the Query Designer, click on create new query. So it will ask you which info provider you want to create the query. I want to create it on the info object, customer info object. So go to find, give the customer info object technical name. Make sure this checkbox is selected, search in technical name. So you are creating a query on info object. Which info object? Customer. So go to rows and columns. Take customer ID. Okay. Then the other attributes like customer, country. Okay. Then city. Then annual sales. So I'll select country, customer ID. Go to display. And here I will select key and text. So key would be coming from the attribute table, text would be coming from the text table of customer. Then similarly for country, I will select the same thing, key and text. Okay. I just want to see the data for US customers. So I'll go to filter, I'll apply country, right click and say filter. Now you can say United States. So the filter is actually applied based on the key. Now save it. So give Z underscore your info object name underscore Q001. So customer master data query. Save it. Okay. If you want to run this query, you can use a T code rsrt/o rsrt. Give the query technical name. Change the query display to HTML. Okay. What is the transaction code? RSRT. You can see the C code here. Transaction RSRT. Now execute the query. Okay. So looks like something is wrong here. Now let me check what is wrong. So let's go to verify if the info object is active. /m rsk1. So customer ID info object, everything is active. Let's see data display. Right click and say display data. So here it is fine. Let me rerun the query once again. So first let's see save Bex query. No errors found. So let's verify what is the status of the data in the attribute table. The object version is A, meaning active version. So data is activated. So ideally we should not have any issue. So let's see what is this error saying. So table configuration for index is not valid. Okay, I don't see any issue with the functional part, so maybe we need to send a request, send a ticket to admin. Okay, so whenever you get this issue, just say please take the screenshot, make sure the system ID is captured, give your user ID, which transaction code you are facing this issue, keep a Word document and post it in the server issues. I think this has to be, we need to check with admin on this. Okay. Okay, so I'll raise a request with admin.
Uh,
Yeah.
Ganesh, can you just hit a F5 because it's at the breakpoint? So can you just hit F5 and beyond that because it's saying.
So that's going to the standard code. Yes, I can do that. So go to /o/rsrt.
Now F8.
We are getting an error. That's the reason it's getting into the debugger. Okay. So if everything is fine, ideally we should not even see this the debugger opening. Okay. So let me take a screenshot of this error. Okay. So I'll get that corrected. Now, meanwhile, you should be able to create this assignment 6. Okay. So you should be able to see the data from the vendor. Okay. Don't load country. Okay. So country, don't load the country descriptions once again. Just make use of the same info object. So we'll do a small assignment. Okay, so small exercise. Now we'll talk about how to do the flat file data loading. Okay. So we'll talk about flat file data loading today. Flat file meaning a CSV file or an Excel file upload. Okay, sometimes we'll get the data in the form of flat files from the business. Okay, we need to upload that data into BW to combine with the ECC data or other enterprise data. Then the next session we'll see how to make. So far, what did we do? We created data sources. Okay, so in the next session we'll see how to create how to make use of standard SAP delivered business content data source. So you need to create a data source only when there is no standard data source given by SAP. Okay, so we'll also see that. Then we'll see how to apply different kinds of rules. So we'll see what kind of issues, etc. Okay. So likewise, we'll do one by one. Once we complete the master data, we'll start with the transactional data. Okay. So then meanwhile, after some loading of transaction data, we'll go to the HANA part. Okay. We'll see how you can redo the similar kind of modeling what we did now in BW. We'll see how to do the similar kind of modeling in HANA. Okay. Then we'll understand what is the advantage of BW modeling, what is the advantage of HANA modeling. We'll see how BW on HANA is a hybrid product which will take the advantage of both the engines. Okay. So then we'll talk about the modeling scenario. So far we just started with the basics of extraction. We'll see how to process the data in BW, how to combine data from multiple sources. Because when it comes to report, it doesn't come, all the data for a report doesn't come from one single table. Okay. So if it is that way, I mean, we don't require these kind of data modeling tools. We should have directly done the reporting in ECC, replacing the database as HANA. Okay. So then we'll talk about the modeling scenarios within BW. Then we'll go to the reporting part. In the reporting, we'll see how to write, how to design complex reports, how to create dynamic variables, formulas, etc. Okay. So now let's talk about how to do the flat file loading.
Ganesh, while you're connecting, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
What are the other file formats we can load data into BW, like XML?
Yes, XML is also supported.
Is it different?
Yeah,
is it different from?
Yeah, it would be a different loading mechanism apart from this CSV file.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll use the web service method to load the XML file. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So now this would be a flat file. Okay, we'll see one by one. So for example, now we connected to SAP system. Okay, ECC. Then we are doing flat file. Then I'll directly connect to a database. Okay. Then I'll connect to an XML file. Then I will see extract data from let's say a legacy system like Oracle apps using data services or any third-party ETL tool. We'll see how to bring data to BW. Okay. We'll also understand which are the areas where BW extraction is not I mean say doesn't have good features. Like for example, extraction from legacy systems, BW doesn't have the proper interfaces. That's where BW will take help of a third-party ETL tools like Informatica, Data Stage, Data Services. So we'll also see that example. Okay. So now I want to extract data from a flat file. So let's see what is the file format I have. A very simple file. You can create your own file. So let's go to loading files. Okay, so we'll have just another 15 minutes of session. Okay, I think it's getting late for you. So just give me another 15 minutes. We'll complete one flat file load. I will give an assignment and then you can work on these assignments for the next session. Okay. So just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So let's see this data load now. So I want to load a flat file. Flat file is nothing but a CSV file. Okay. So in this flat file, what data we are getting is, okay, article ID, article description. So both key and text are coming from the same file. Okay. Now tell me how many info objects I need to create for this file. How many info objects do I need to create? Okay. So how about others? How many info objects? Soumya, can you please respond? Okay. So just request for everyone is please quickly respond so that I will also understand. I mean whether you are following or whether I need to explain it one more time. Okay. So article ID and description both are same, right? One is key and one is text, like my employee ID and employee name. Yeah. Thank you. So both of them will be one info object. Now for category, what option do I need to enable? Tell me. If I want to make this load successful on category, what option I need to enable? So category, I need to enable the lowercase option because you are getting all the descriptions. Okay. So this is product ID. Product ID will be loaded fine. But for category, I will enable the lowercase option. Otherwise, the load will fail. Otherwise, at least I need to convert into uppercase. Okay. Now here I have family code. So these 5 products are under the same family code. You are having a product line code. Now if I go to, I have one more file, product line text, product line and product line description. Now this data, now once you create these info objects, okay, now if I want to load the second file, how many info objects I need to create for this file now? Tell me, everyone, please respond. Okay, so let me reframe that question once again. Okay, so I created this info object. Okay, I created 4 info objects. For this, I created 1 info object. Okay, so this one I created another info object. Okay, so price I created another info object. Family code I created another info object. Okay, so can you hear me? Yeah. So I have already created an info object for product line. So when I'm loading the descriptions for family code, I don't need to create any other info object. I have to reuse the same info object. Okay. So everyone agree with me? Any questions on this? Yeah. So let's create 4 info objects and how many data loads I need to do. So I need to load these 2 files. Okay. So currently I'm assuming that all this data is coming in USD. Okay. Or otherwise keeps one column currency. So for currency, you don't need to create an info object because when you create the key figure, so you will give some currency as 0 currency. Okay. So for this file, the number of info objects I need to create is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 info objects has to be created. 3 data flows has to be created. So 3 data flows. What are those 3 data flows? One is article, nothing but product attributes. The next one is product text. Okay. The next one is product line description. Okay. So these 2 files would lead us to 3 data flows. Fine. I think we'll continue in the next session. Okay. So from next session, we'll have a longer duration. Okay. Because this is like the first 2 sessions, I'm keeping it short. Okay. So our session timings would be like for 3 hours, 7:30 p.m. CST to 10:30 p.m. CST with some 20 or 25 minutes break. Okay. So next week we'll start with this master data loading using flat file. Okay. Then we'll talk about the standard business content SAP delivered data sources. Then we'll see how to enhance the data source, how to write some routines, reload the master data. Okay, and we'll talk about more error handling scenarios. Okay. So is everyone okay with the assignment? Yeah.
Yeah, Aditi here. Actually, I had a small doubt in identifying the key figures in various tables. Like, say, for example, in LSA1, like I thought there are many variable characteristics, but then in the whenever we create a key figure, we don't have a char type in the key figure. So, like, is it a way to determine a key figure that, like, if we want a certain like option to be a key figure, then it has to be anything other than a char data type. Like, is that the
Like
way
for
we can
example,
determine?
so you are saying if you go to LSA1 table, you want to understand which can be a key figure and how do you identify whether it's a key figure or char, right?
Yeah.
So usually these would be your key figures: amount, okay, quantity, right, price. So check for the data type of currency. The currency data type in LFA1 table or quantity data type in the source table is a key figure. Okay. So a char data type will not be a key figure, obviously, because char is for description, right?
Okay, but there can be some characteristics which can vary. So whatever varies is what we consider a key figure, right?
No. Key figure is quantifiable data, on which you do calculations. For example, salary. So you have a monthly salary. Then if you want to see the yearly salary, what you will see? You will sum up all those monthly values. So you are doing the sum of those records. You want to calculate the total tax amount. So tax is like 10% of your salary. What do you do? So salary into 0.1. So you are doing some calculation. So that is a key figure.
Okay.
Okay. So if you see employee salary, the salary doesn't change every month or every day. Okay. So that is also a key figure.
Okay. So we look for the types such as amount, currency, weight, date, time, all these things which can be quantified.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Coco, so where your issues solved, the ones which you which we discussed yesterday.
Like I wrote on the discussion, I said I was able to do create a new info object.
Can you please be a bit louder? I'm not able to hear you properly.
Okay. I said I was able to create an info object, and everything was going on, but all of a sudden, I don't know, I mistakenly closed the window, so I didn't know how to try back all the information I've been saving. So that was where a problem. But aside that, I could do the info objects, I could do and all the other stuff, I could do them. But
No, you need to come closer to the mic or speak louder. I don't hear you.
can you hear me?
No, no.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Okay, maybe you can do a post in the blog. I'll respond to you because I'm not able to hear you. Okay. So any other questions? So Soumya, Satish, Samuel, Srini, Venkat, Abraham, Aditi, Ram. Okay, so this would be your assignments for today. Okay, I'll post them in the blog, but don't just simply. I will be posting it a bit late. Okay, so don't wait for me to post it in the assignments page. So please go ahead and work on these assignments. And once you are done with the assignment, post it in the blog with the technical name of the object which you have created. Okay, and any issues you face. So I can log into the system and verify if you have done your assignment correctly, or if there is something missing, I can discuss that in the session. Okay. So otherwise, I assume that you did it correctly. Okay. Because anyway, I can't. It would be very tough for me to go into the system and verify every object, right? So once you are done with your assignment, post back the technical name of the object you did, your issues you faced in the blog. Okay. So like before we come for the next session, please ensure you complete all these 6 assignments. So the yesterday's 4 assignments or 3 assignments, okay, and today's 3 assignments. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, it's not really complex, but you need to do a lot of practice. Yeah. So I'll try to give you more and more assignments in the coming session. So we'll start with some more real-time examples. Material master data customer is used in every project. Okay. So I'll give you some of the report requirements. We'll discuss how do you start understanding the report, then how do we convert into a technical spec, and how do we implement it. Okay. So let's meet next week. Then we'll continue with the topics which we discussed. So agenda for the next week would be flat file loading and how to load the data using standard data sources. Then error handling, and we'll talk about what is master data activation, etc. Okay.